Hey folks, Tyler and Woody here. I know that you guys are eager with anticipation for us to release the premiere of our second season. But between now and then, while we're on this break, we thought we would kind of provide you guys with a couple bonus episodes. Today's episode is actually one that we had recorded before, and it just never really made it off the cutting room floor, so to speak. Mainly just because we ended up having other topics that we wanted to cover this season. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this bonus episode.
While there is still no word on a cure for the virus,
report suspicious activity in the call 911.
Did I tell you I got a bad batch of Think bars?
I don't know why you would choose like now to be the time to start digging into one of them, though, is the thing.
Well, I'm feeling a little shaky on that second bowl, and I felt like...
You might want to just like calm it down with some carbs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, what I said about Suches is, I guess it's like a mountain town kind of.
Yeah.
But it's so associated in my mind with like
Methamphetamines.
rednecks.
Yeah, yeah, methamphetamines, dude. That is the town where I was close to whenever I had my like scary story from our Halloween episode.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Is it Lumpkin County?
I think so. Oh, dude, what about last night whenever we were playing D&D and like at the very end I just pretend like I was like looking up the thing and be like, okay, leveling up. All right, now let me just nonstop, dude. Oh my
Man,
gosh,
last
that was
night... Well, we'll get
hilarious,
into
dude.
it here in a minute, but...
Man, my throat just keeps on making crazy noises.
Speaking of throat, dude, I get this weird little feeling. It is weird because I never get like cough kind of stuff. And I'm not really coughing yet, but like it's that weird like metal kind of taste in my throat.
You know, in a weird way, when I was like, I don't know, it reminds me of being a kid, dude. So like, it's like the beginning of fall when you get that, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, I'm not going to say I don't hate it, but I...
Oh, I know.
You know what I
know.
mean? It kind of just reminds me of being a kid and kind of having just that time, like the time of the year and all that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep. No, I'm not there yet because it's still fucking 90 degrees outside. But
Yeah. Actually, it got pretty cool out last night, man.
I will say yesterday afternoon, like it was kind of rainy and like the wind was
Two old
blowing.
guys talking about the weather, you know? That's it.
How's the weather up there? And
I mean, do we
live,
need
like,
to add that to the
15
intro?
minutes.
Like our, tabletop RPGs, the weather, things we hate about younger generation.
Horror movies,
Like
Farmer's
we're
Almanac.
slowly turning into like those dang old Muppets, you know? They're like sitting on the top of the theater, being like, "Turn it down there."
Dude, speaking of Muppets, man, I've been like on this huge Kitchen Nightmares kick
Oh my God.
with Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah. And did the Muppets come as like a surprise
No.
guest? Then why
No,
do you go
but, like-
Muppet to
No,
Gordon Ramsay?
listen, hold on. While he's like berating the hell out of these people, he's like, "You're cooking like a fucking idiot, you Muppet." I've never heard anybody use it like in a derogatory way, but
Yeah,
man,
he gets
it's a pretty good
intense, bro.
insult.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good insult.
Dude, I have been watching way too many scary movies lately, and I'll tell you why, man. This is how I know. It goes back to whenever I was a little kid. Part of the reason why I didn't really watch them all the time, aside from my mom just being like, nope, was I just have these like really vivid dreams. Of course, whenever you're younger, they're nightmares. I had one the other night, dude, that I don't want to call it a nightmare because it wasn't like something was chasing after me. It was more like...
Oh boy.
It was more like emotionally scary. And let me describe this. So in the dream, it was like, you know how sometimes like details are just weird, like, you know, it's prison, but like it's your grandma's old house or whatever. You know what I mean? It's always like weird. This wasn't necessarily that, but essentially I had to go to prison for like life sentence, man. And
Wow.
in the dream, dude, the scariest thing about it was like I would feel the real, like raw emotions of, not being able to see my kids, my family, my wife, and being like in this like scary prison. Although it kind of looked more like the interior of a hospital. The beds were like hospital beds. It was weird. But I had to be in this prison, and it was just like like I said, the scariest thing about it was all the emotions that came along with that. Now, I will say that one sort of thing that made it oddly hilarious was that my cellmate was Tobias Funke.
Oh man, I never knew.
Let me take off my assistant skirt and put on my Barbra Streisand in The Prince of Tides ass-masking therapist pantsuit.
And if you've never seen Arrested Development, listeners, first off, you need to watch it. But second, Tobias is one of just the funniest characters ever. And so, like, I would be going through this like emotional turmoil in my dream and feeling those emotions like actually feeling them. And then enter like Tobias and be like, well, today's is just like at least today is not a blah, 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 blah. Like just super silly. And so when I woke up, it was like that weird mix of like that gut punch. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right? You've had those dreams where you wake up and you're like, it's not like you know that it wasn't real, but you still feel like icky or whatever,
I don't know though, man. I mean,
you've never had that before?
Well, no. I definitely have, but I'm saying, in response to you saying that it wasn't real, I listened to this guy. He was like I think he was like a physicist or whatever, but he was really open-minded in that field, and he was talking about like, okay, well, and it was a very sort of like flippant kind of throwaway thing, but it was like, he was like, yeah, and I mean, even dreams, maybe that's how we, we don't need a spaceship, we don't need a time machine. Maybe that's how we traverse into other dimensions. And those dreams are not really dreams, but they're actually us in other dimensions.
Yeah, dude, that's amazing that you say that, because I know that we've talked about this
daily
before, you and I, but I don't know if I brought it up on the show before. But like one of my favorite theories about dreams in general is that like our consciousness, our spirit, whatever you want to call it, gets elevated to this like quote unquote dream dimension, you know? And from there, you do all these like things, whatever. That's why we have like different, power sometimes, or, whatever. But then that's also why sometimes you meet people that you've never seen in your life. And I'm not talking about famous celebrities or anything like that. I'm talking about like just somebody that you're like, man, that person was like a real person. My imagination didn't just create this person, like the physical characteristics, their face, all that stuff. And you go through this dream and then you wake up and you're like, man, that was weird. Or sometimes you feel like you've met somebody before and or, quote unquote coincidences, or, what's it called?
Like deja vu?
Deja vu, yeah, exactly. Is because like we go to that dimension or whatever, and pop into an alternate reality, which I didn't even think about that when I had this dream, but boy, it was like freaky, man.
Yeah, that's
I didn't
crazy.
like it. So
I mean, it is one of those things that's kind of like, if you think of it just from like a physiological sort of perspective, it's like, I mean, obviously like our bodies need rest, but it's like, it's interesting that like, if you look at like the human race, it's like, okay, 8 hours out of the day. I mean, not obviously you don't have to get 8 hours, but it's like, for 8 hours out of the entire day, like, that's our weakness. It's like, oh, well, that's when you strike your enemy. That's when you, invade. So it's like, it is interesting that like so much time is like required every single day for us to like have to go to sleep and
recharge and stuff.
Yeah, and that's the only place that we can go to this sort of dream reality or whatever it is. Maybe it is just, the downloading or uploading of thoughts like throughout the day. Like I know that's
it is interesting though. Like even on the like, I don't know, dreams in general are just like interesting because, is it like our subconscious trying to tell us something, or, because there's all these like dream interpretation
Which
schools of thought and all that kind of stuff. But
I don't know how much I put into those though.
I don't know.
I mean, I think it's interesting.
It's all interesting, yeah. But
Yeah.
I tend to like the idea of us kind of going it sounds so, I don't know, kooky, I guess, to say out loud, but like, going to that other plane of existence and being in that dream world, because like, I don't know, it's also just weird. Like, why does our body do that in general? Oh my God, my power's flickering, dude.
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, but then at the same time, it's like, if you believe, which I strongly do, and I mean, the government, believed in it enough to spend millions and millions of dollars, but like, is this somewhat like in the same category of remote viewing and what is it, like lucid dreaming? Like, is remote viewing kind of doing the same thing that like you would be doing in lucid dreaming, or you could call it astral projection or any of that stuff? It's just that the remote viewers are able to do it, and they've sort of refined the process to the point where they have like complete control over it, kind of like when you lucid dream.
Yeah, which I've never, like, I guess by technical definition, really kind of lucid dreamt. Is that I think that's the correct tense.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've never done that per se, but I do remember, like, when I was a kid, one of the things my mom, like, and it could have been one of those things that she just did to kind of like, I mean, you know how it is, dude, as a dad, you're just like, no, all you got to do is this.
Right.
But I remember like having
most of it's
nightmares
made
about Freddy Krueger, and my mom basically kind of saying like, you know what I do whenever I would have nightmares? And I'm like, no. She's like, well, you just have to, like, in the dream realize that, you're in a dream and that you're more powerful, and then you can use your power. And so like,
I mean,
I did that as a kid, dude. And like in the dream would, whatever superpower I wanted or whatever, like
Dream Warriors style.
Yeah. And what's funny is like at the time when I was a kid, I'd only seen like 1 and 2 or something, so it wasn't like, I'm not saying that I created the idea for Dream Warriors, but like at the same time I am saying that.
Yeah, I mean, you could.
So
have.
I mean,
yeah.
I think now it's a good time for a lawsuit, right? To
Yeah.
kind of get some what I've owed, what I'm owed.
Long overdue. Yeah.
Hey. No, but dude, there's this movie that Ann watched on Netflix that deals with that, like, sort of astral projection, and it's like a murder mystery too, and it like, man, hold on, I gotta ask her what it was, dude. Yeah, because I think in execution, I don't know if it was as good. I haven't watched it. It was like maybe it wasn't a movie. It was like a mini series or something. But when she described it to me, I was like, what? This sounds incredible, man. The story is like really cool. I got to ask her what it is. Hold on.
And it was a murder mystery, but with lucid
Kind
dreaming?
of, yeah. It's it's kind of multi-pronged. It's a lot of different stuff. It's like seemingly there's some like husband and wife drama, but hold on. All right, I'll wait until she gets back on that. But it's cool because like essentially, well, I don't want to, because I haven't actually watched it. I don't really want to spoil it. It's an interesting topic for sure, man. Dreams. Like, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say the OA, I finished that a while back. And
The season 2 or?
I finished the whole thing, yeah. And it's
How many seasons?
just 2 seasons.
Is there? Okay. I've only seen the 1.
Yeah, you got to
keep, talk to me.
You got to keep going. It's amazing, but the ending really is sort of like, it's kind of jarring.
What does that mean? You mean like Game of Thrones style jarring?
No, not necessarily like that. I
Well-
mean, it is very sort of like St. Elsewhere drawing.
Never seen
I
it.
mean, did I say drawing? Jarring, I meant to say, sorry.
Never seen St. Elsewhere.
No, talking about dreams, and you and I are, obviously we've talked about this before because like we started writing a book at the time years ago about it. But so the impetus for all this was when I was a kid, I used to have these 2 sort of separate dreams that would reoccur. One was I knew how to fly. And then the other one was I could breathe underwater. Now, what was weird about these is the flying one always had to do with like me getting my like breath right. Like it was this weird sort of process where I would have to like kind of, obviously I was really young, so I didn't understand like what meditation was, but it was almost this sort of like, capture your thoughts, like let everything sort of like fall away and this is, in the dream. And it's like this weird sort of like slow down your breathing. And then I would start like taking these like bigger breaths and bigger breaths and bigger breaths. And it would like fill up my lungs so I could kind of like fly like Mario almost, like, or float rather. I guess Mario 3 style.
Yeah.
Or it wasn't really flying.
No, Mario 2? Or are you talking
Oh,
about
yeah. It was Mario
Squirrel
2.
Tail?
Yeah. And it was almost like levitation sort of. And, but then it was weird because I would always kind of get going and, which this links to like a real life kind of sort of phobia of like, being in a hot air balloon and like something happens and like you're just carried away. But I would like start levitating and then like the wind would start blowing and then it would start blowing me up and up and up and I would get scared and then that's how I would wake up. Aside from that is like this other thing where I could breathe underwater. Now this was even more weird, and this was sort of the inspiration that sort of started this whole thing, and it was part of a dream that kind of led to this book that you and I had started writing years ago. But
it was called Gill, and it's kind of weird because like the gills are like right on the
So I'd had this dream where I could like breathe underwater, and I hadn't had it for years and years, and I ended up having it, many years later when I was in my 20s, and that's when you and I had kind of met, and everything was cool, and it kind of started this whole story. But basically, the dream would be, it was like I would be on the shore or I would be in the water, on the verge of drowning, or like somebody else would be drowning, and I would need to like save them. And it was weird because it would always be like a thing where I would be underwater, like sinking. And so I would like look down and like my pointer and middle finger on both hands would start glowing. So I'd like put my fingers together and then I would put them like hand over hand, like at the center of my chest. And I would do this weird thing where I would like, it's hard to explain. It's like this sort of like, I would, they would be like centered, 2 fingers over 2 fingers. I would pull out, and then one hand would go down, one hand would go up, and then it would like go back in place.
You draw the word blood with your hands. Is that what you're saying?
No. No. So it's like you like pull out, one hand goes down, one hand goes up, and then you pull back in. So it's like you're going from one hand being on top to the other hand. Mm-hmm. Right. And so when I was doing this, it was like it would give me this sort of like internal view of like my organs, and it was like I was like sort of changing the location of like my lungs and my diaphragm, and all of a sudden it was like it created this sort of like alchemical thing where I could suddenly breathe underwater like a fish. It was really, really bizarre, but like I'm curious, all you folks out there, if you guys have had like flying dreams or breathing underwater dreams. I feel like you told me something about.
I had like a flying dream where it was like I was in this like a cockpit of something that was just like in between like a commercial jet and a commercial like huge like passenger airliner. It was like the middle of that. Mm-hmm. And I was in the cockpit because like things were getting crazy, and of course, who are they going to call, man? Not the Ghostbusters, because they got to get Woody up here. Mm-hmm. So I go into the cockpit. I'm like, what's? And it's like all kinds of things are going crazy.
Have the mask dropped already?
I don't remember that part. Because dude, this is like we're talking 20 years ago. This dream, mm-hmm. But needless to say, we kind of get close to these like trees, the treetops or whatever, and something hits the plane hard enough to where I go flying out of the front windshield of this cockpit, and I'm just like flying through the air, and it shot me out kind of like higher than the treetops. And I just remember like in the dream looking down and just being like, okay, man, I don't know, I'm kind of scared, but I can do this, and thinking like all I gotta do is grab the top of one of these pine trees, and then just grab it real hard as I'm slowing down, and then sort of just like slide on down it. Just give it like a hug and just kind of slide on down it. So then I land.
This feels like the dream of like, I feel like if the plane's about to crash, just before you get to the ground, you could jump out.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically that same kind of like unrealistic sort of confidence. And so I grab onto the top of this tree, which, by the way, in my dream isn't just like one long branch. It's just like this, like, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's just like this little skinny thing. I'm like, whoa, it's like wow, 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 wow. And I start to slide down it. And I mean, this is kind of like a Pacific Northwest type tree. I mean, it's just
really tall.
Hundreds and hundreds of feet above the ground. So it's still way up in the air. And as I'm getting down there, the problem is like the trunk is getting so big that I can't wrap my hands all the way around it or my arms. And so it's like, and I'm still too high. And then I woke up. Terrifying, man.
Man, that's awesome.
At the same time, I kind of still had that. Every time I got on a plane after that, I'd be like, well, worst case scenario is I can just slide on down that tree.
Grab the top of that tree.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
America's future can be determined by our dreams and our visions.
It was very intense, bright light.
For over 200 years, there have been reports of giant man-like creatures.
From another dimension, another world, I don't know.
The most intriguing mystery on the North American continent.
You're listening to That Would Be Rad.
Yeah, dreams are fascinating, man. I mean, I kind of eventually want to do an episode about remote viewing because I think I just have this like sort of gut feeling that it's tied into dreams. But for the folks that don't know, remote viewing is this, it's kind of a process of like, psychically, I guess, viewing or sort of somewhat astral projecting your consciousness to, other locations. And what's interesting about it is like, back in the 60s and 70s, like the CIA, I mean, they sunk millions and millions of dollars, and they would have these guys and gals, they would set like a marker in a building, across the globe in like France, or like all over the place. And like, I mean, it was like pretty amazing odds where they would get everything completely right. Like they knew exactly what the building looked like. They knew exactly what the object that they were supposed to find. I mean, it's pretty fascinating. But there's a guy called Ingo Swann, and he's really sort of tied into it. And apparently, he was able to like remote view, and he found like these sort of, I don't know if they were like buildings. I know he found like canals, and I feel like they were like these type structures like on Mars and stuff when remote viewing. And then another thing that's really interesting is like a lot of the guys, I guess, as it sort of went along, and I think Ingo Swann was one of the head sort of proponents of this, of like, we're not only remote viewing like out of our bodies, but we're doing it like outside of like space and time. So it's like they were able to not only remote view into like other sort of bilocation, but they're able to like move around, like, if you look at time on a linear sort of path, they're able to kind of move around of like the time in which and where they're sort of remote viewing, which is pretty wild. But yeah, we definitely need to do a full show on it because it's pretty amazing. The
miniseries that Ann watches called Behind Her Eyes.
Oh, I've never seen it.
And it literally deals with this, man. So we should watch it because I think it's only like 6 episodes or something. And
is it like new?
Yeah, relatively new.
What else you been into lately?
So I actually took a break from reading the D&D books.
My gosh.
I know, but I'm actually in the middle of one right now. But because, dude, I had to start this book, man. We listened to that episode of the podcast called Belief Hole.
One of my favorites.
It's so good, man.
Yep.
It's a really cool podcast. Listeners of our show, you'll enjoy theirs as well. So definitely add that to your list. And they talked about this guy who wrote a book called Disembodied Voices, the True Accounts of Hidden Beings. And the author's name is Tim Marchenko. And dude, so listening to their episode, it intrigued both of us, and I was like, I just got to get this book, man.
Who told you about it though? First of all,
You did, is what I'm saying. And so I get this book, and I mean, I haven't been able to put it down. Number one, it's so well written. We do have to do an episode just about it, completely, because it's on the surface, it talks about this author who had a sort of, an experience when he was around 12, and it kind of impacted him so much that he began this research that led to him writing this book to figure out basically what he experienced. And I don't really want to give anything else away other than it's just outstanding. And, we just have to do an episode about it.
Well, and the reason that we don't want to give anything away is because, Tim, if you're listening, we got to have you on the show, man.
Yeah.
We got to have you on the show.
We will have you on the show.
Yeah.
It'll be cool.
Whether you like it or not.
We'll fly all the way out to Canada and kidnap you.
He's Canadian?
Too far. Yeah, dude. And yeah, he's Canadian. And so there's like intermixed into like sort of international stuff that kind of is super interesting in his book. The Canadian lore and folklore and stuff that, we don't really know much about.
Yeah.
Other than, the stuff that we've kind of researched and talked about on the show so far. Man, it's just so fascinating, man. It's just really, really good.
Speaking of Canada, yeah, my art rep, Cam, with Inky Knuckles, is from Canada. Yeah, everything we find out, it is weird how there's this sort of disconnection between us in America and Canada, with us kind of being so close, but like, man, really fascinating stuff as far as like paranormal kind of stuff. We've done several. I mean, I guess the Valley of the Headless Men was one, which was one of my favorites. And what was the other one?
Ostman?
Yeah, Albert Ostman. Is it Ostman? Yeah, it is Ostman.
Ostman, yeah.
Yeah, he was a British Columbia, right?
Yeah, he was out in that area.
That area.
And man, like, I don't know about you, but like every time we do an episode about, just another area, whenever I'm looking into it, man, I want to get out there.
Yeah. It looks really, really stunning, man.
I got a new flashlight, by the way, that's going to be perfect for, it's like $800
dollars.
No.
8 billion candle power.
Lumens. 800 lumens, dude. And it just lights up the night, man. It's awesome. So when we go camping this fall, I'm going to be bringing that bad boy, and we'll take the kids squatching.
I love it. Dude, my neighbor actually has like a laser pointer that he can like hit planes with it.
I mean, cool, man. I had one of those in middle school,
Yeah, but was it strong enough to hit airplanes?
I don't know. I never did, man. I mean, for fear that I would like cause them to crash.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's highly illegal, but I mean, that's pretty wild.
What is he, 12? Your neighbor's a middle school kid?
He's a middle school kid. He has a family.
Hey, man, come over here real quick. Let me show you my laser pointer.
3
cool,
kids.
Hey, Josh. Cool, Josh.
I have been on a huge... and what's funny is I do this like I probably fall into this hole about once a year. Huge fan of Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. I don't really get into like Hell's Kitchen or the Master Chef stuff or all those, but like this is
Chef.
Basically Gordon Ramsay is this absolute genius, total badass, like British, multi-Michelin star winner chef, and it started out in England, but the later shows, I think there's like 1 or 2 seasons.
Now, where are you watching it?
Well, we just cut the cord on we no longer have satellite or, so we bumped up our Hulu to like the Hulu Live or something. I don't think that's what it's called, but it's basically like having cable, just it's through Hulu. But yeah, they have like every season. And guys.
So short version, Hulu.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's actually, I guess it would be available.
It is,
what I'm saying is I don't know whatever package we have, like bumping it up, if like I'm able to see all of them because of that, or if it's on like the regular.
Yeah, and it's called what now?
It's just called Kitchen Nightmares. And the premise is like these failing businesses. You know, a lot of them are in these like tiny little towns, or some are in like really busy, great towns, and they've just got so many things wrong with them. Like they're disorganized and they're dirty and like, you know, whatever. And so he just kind of shows up and like, you know, whips them into shape. And but God, it's so good. Like him just, I mean, my favorite thing is like, you know, we talked about it before, but when he just insults the hell out of it. He's like, "You're cooking like a fucking idiot, you stupid Muppet." It's like, I've never heard somebody use the term Muppet derogatory like that.
Yeah.
And
I mean, typically, it's funny, dude. Like, typically, I'm not a huge fan of somebody just like,
oh, it's amazing.
Unnecessarily like going off on someone. But like with these shows specifically, a lot of times, there was another show, obviously not exactly like this, but I do like these types of shows where there's like a failed business and then somebody comes in and rescues it and whatever.
Yeah.
Do you remember that show, The Prophet?
Yeah.
Same kind of deal, except he represents Marcus. Gosh, I forget his name, but he is kind of like on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Right.
He's just like super nice.
Well,
but he'll also like get intense.
Yeah.
When he needs to, you know. But it's always interesting to me to see these like, because there's always like emotion wrapped up into the business, you know. And and so like it's so hard. I mean, dude, we experienced it as like songwriters, right? You would like work on all these songs for however long, and then you'd get in the studio with a producer, and they'd be like, "Well, why don't you try that?" And it's like immediately, it's
hard.
You're like, "Hey, man, you're talking about my kid."
Yeah, right.
And it's like bringing your kid to the first day of school, and they're like, "Well, can you get him a haircut?"
Yeah, and that's what's so great about the show is like every single one, and like, you know, it's so entertaining. Like once you kind of get into the vibe of like what the show is kind of about, but like every single time, it's like, no, I stand 100% behind my food, and it's like, bro, you're microwaving food that you've like cooked 2 months ago, and then now you're storing in plastic bags and just reheating and like. But like what's so great about it, and the reason that it's kind of like sort of palpable, you know, the reason that you sort of accept like him just railing and tearing into these people is like he really cares. Like he's a real sweet dude in the end, and he lifts them up, and he like, you know, it goes beyond like just a restaurant a lot of times too, because like, you know, if you have a failed business, obviously that's going to carry over into the owners, like your marriage and your family. So it's like he goes to that where he'll like show up and meet with like the whole family, and like it's an amazing show though if you've never seen it.
Dude, please tell me you saw the episode with like the Italian guy, and he's just like,
I've seen them all.
The one where he's like, I think maybe I brought this up on another, but he's like, don't you have, Gordon Ramsay's like, don't you have like a chip on your shoulder? And he's like, what? The Italian guy just goes full throttle out of the gate. What kind of a chip? What kind of chip on the shoulder should I have? You know, and he's just like, well, how much what does this business mean to you? And so he went from, dude, and this is so Italian. He went from like full blast, like defensive, like what kind of chip should I have on my shoulder? And then he like asked him that question. He's like, well, doesn't this business mean anything to you? And he's like, my whole life. Oh my gosh,
exactly.
Dude. Just like super mad and then super emotional. Just straight up Italian. It's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of Italian folks on the show that make for good TV because they are sort of, you know, I hate to like sort of label an entire group of people, but there is.
I'm Italian, so you know I'll be the litmus test. Of being insulted by it.
There's some consistency for sure in that.
No, that was good.
Any music you've been into lately? I know we were going to avoid this, so you didn't have to put songs in. But
come on.
I just got a couple. Can I say them?
Well, no, because every time I try to avoid it, it's because I don't want to like put them in the episode, but then I look like I'm the one that's not a big music fan.
No.
Yeah.
You and I are both.
So I'm going to talk about a couple. I know that, and you know that, but you know, I don't know that hey, I don't know if these guys outside of the neighborhood understand. You know what I mean?
Knock around, guys.
Yeah, I'll talk about some music that I've been listening to. Man, I accidentally, thanks to Spotify, discovered this band that, man, yes, they're like emo. Yes, they came out like at the height of it, but not like.
Did they really?
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
I thought they were
not,
like a
not like
later on.
I think the problem with the genre of quote unquote emo is that
Genre.
people will be like, oh man, they must be talking about Sum 41 or like a lot of that sugar
Yeah.
candy pop punk stuff.
Yeah.
That's not what this is. More like leaning towards like the Taking Back Sunday side of stuff.
Right.
And this band's called Monine.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus, I just started playing it. The song is called Are We Really Happy With Who We Are Right Now?
Yeah.
And it's just, dude, there's so many parts in it that are just, I just loved, man. It was just so good.
Yeah,
Also,
it's really cool.
The Killers just came out with a new album.
Yeah, I heard the first song, but that's about it.
Yeah, I kind of had it playing in the background while I was working the other day, and dude, it's good. There's some good moments. It's just, it's good.
Yeah, our buddy Jesse actually just text messaged me about it. Said it was pretty good. It is interesting how there's like, and again, I've only heard the first song, but like, I read an article, I guess from like Paste, which, but they do a great job of like kind of putting new bands in front of you. But the interview was with Brandon Flowers, the singer of the Killers, and he was talking about like, it was almost sort of a conceptual sort of decision to like, put people from the area like at the beginning of every song kind of thing. I could see how it would get a little annoying.
It doesn't though. I mean, it's cool, man. You almost feel like, man, what is this, like a documentary that he found or something? Because they go into like some intense stuff, man. But it's like in a way to kind of, and I didn't read that article, but you can tell it's in a way kind of to pay. It's almost like an homage to their hometown, right? So imagine like us kind of going and just interviewing random people about this town and then throwing that at the front of a song. I think it was pretty cool. No, I mean like somebody will be like, yeah, man, I mean, well, Jimbo was, and so like it's cool, man. I liked it. That part I actually liked.
Well, he's a big sort of advocate for shining a light on, I guess, Las Vegas and Nevada. No, I love that stuff. I love that sort of conceptual idea. It's kind of like one of my favorite albums by Our Lady Peace. It's called Spiritual Machines, and he has like sort of Ray Kurzweil quotes at the beginning of every song. It's kind of like, the year is 2041. The technology has, is sort of big futurist kind of thing. I
think
love
if
that
it's
stuff.
done right. Yeah, if it's done right, it's super, super rad. But
I could see people not digging it though.
Yeah, maybe.
Just who's like, I need to just play the damn song. Like, I don't want to hear Jim Bob talk about his,
Yeah, that's very true.
But I like it.
I also discovered this, like, it's an instrumental, it's a score by this guy. The guy's name is Daniel Hart, and it's from the original soundtrack of this movie called A Ghost Story. And it's got like Rooney Mara and Casey Affleck.
Oh, Casey Affleck.
Yeah, I've never seen the movie.
I haven't either. I've heard about it forever.
But I literally discovered the movie because of this soundtrack. I just happened to accidentally like the cover of this soundtrack's album is just like, whoa, man, this looks like, what is this? And I just started listening to it, and it's just music, and it's like, man, I think there's a couple of songs on there that do have like, an actual, singer or whatever, but for the most part, it's just like this kind of creepy, kind of, I don't know, like dark, piano and strings and stuff.
Yeah.
But then I watched the trailer of the movie, and it looks kind of cool, kind of weird.
Yeah.
And artsy, but pretty cool.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, and I've heard that it's like really sort of an interesting kind of, twist on the whole like ghost story. Kind of like, I think a little bit like Sixth Sense and what was the other one, the Nicole Kidman one? The Others, or the is that right?
Yeah, like any of the shots that you see from this movie, it's like essentially the premise is like this ghost comes back to visit, I guess it's home, and you just see this person in a white sheet with holes cut out in it
so
throughout
scary.
the movie the whole time.
Yeah, that's
while people are just doing what they do, and so it's like I can't tell if it's creepy or whatever, but it makes me want to see the movie for sure. And I think in terms of it, the score itself, It's beautiful. Really.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Where can you find that online? That movie? Do you know?
Oh, that I think it's on Netflix actually.
Oh,
I think I'm not 100% on that, but I've also, you know how like, well, you don't have Spotify, but every now and then it'll just be like, hey, recommended from your listens in the past. You know, we think you're gonna like to listen to this basically, and so it's like recommended for today. And the other day, that Get Up Kids album On a Wire,
oh, so good,
was recommended, man, and I re-listened to that, and dude, it immediately put me back to just the good old days, man.
Yeah.
Just listening to the Get Up Kids, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I love that band. Our buddy Boo Boo, our old bass player, him and I, like, he turned me onto them years and years and years ago. With the album Something to Write Home About, it has like robots on the cover, and this is like sort of this would have come out in 1999. So it was like, you know, just before, I think like Jimmy Eat World, the Clarity album had already come out. That album, you know, it was before like emo kind of became like a whole sort of genre within itself. But yeah, I love that era of like the early sort of emo classics. And yeah, the Get Up Kids are definitely in there. When On a Wire came out, it was sort of a departure in a way of like the sort of typical emo fare. Like they were kind of, to me, it was almost like they were kind of like bridging a gap between sort of their emo roots with like, I don't know, bands like maybe like Spoon and Wilco, and like that kind of like,
yeah, there was a little more like not folky, but
yeah, what would the word be?
I don't
know either. Also a great album though. I was hoping you would say the bands that I sent you the other day, but I doubt you've even listened to them. And that
I don't even remember. It just depends on when you sent them. I remember why now. It was like 11:45 on a Friday night. Yeah. No, the answer is no. I didn't get to them. Okay.
I mean, I don't know why you didn't listen to them when you woke up at like 3:30 the next day.
Saturdays I don't wake up at 3:30. It's more like
4:30.
6:30.
Jesus.
I sleep in.
No, the bands are one band is called Pine Grove, which man, it's like everything I've heard is like pretty amazing. And they're one of those bands that kind of piss me off because like you look at pictures and they look like they're just out of high school.
Yeah.
Other band is a band called Pono, P-O-N-O. They're really cool. And then another band, which I don't know if you turned me on to this or if it was like a suggested thing when I looked up Monine, the band that you were talking about, but a band called Foxing. Have you heard of them?
I don't think I did.
I need to send it to you. They have a song called The Medic, which is really cool. And then lastly, talking about like movie scores and stuff like that, weird synchronicity, but this song has popped up like numerous times in my, not random, but what is it called? Like shuffle.
I don't know, bro.
And it's from a movie called True Romance. It's by Hans Zimmer, and it's called You're So Cool. Have you ever heard that? It's really
probably,
cool.
but I can't like, off the top of my head remember it.
It's just this sort of quirky little score, but yeah, it's kind of great. Kind of 80s, 90s kind of thing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, super simple, but like it's really just like pretty pleasant,
Very cool.
Very cool.
Well, man, I guess I better get started with the real episode, huh?
And always dark around the eyes. You always said that you prefer the night. Well, now I guess let's go out and start a fight between us and them. Set your own fire before this night is through. I'll carry you 1,000 miles and never leave this room. When you wake in the morning and it's just me and you, before this night is through. Back streets, bright Sick